So one of my recent requests was to go through kind of interviews and what's my take on what to expect in a interview for a fine art degree, and then also cover and touch on interviews for foundations as well, because there's not actually too much difference between an interview for a foundation course and an interview for a fine art course, because in both contexts you're still at that very early stage where you're not expected to have necessarily a refined concept. Rather, both stages are more interested in how you think, how you present yourself as a student, and what kind of a student they think you're going to be coming into their degree course, and kind of how much will you benefit out of that. And of course they want your money. So before I move on to, as I said, kind of both interview processes will have things that are in common. So I'm going to touch on the foundation course first. Now, a foundation course, obviously you're coming out of A-levels or some kind of qualification at college level or sixth form level or whatever you call it wherever you're from, but you obviously don't have an independent practice as an artist yet. And what a foundation course is supposed to do is set you up with some kind of structure and some system and an independent studio practice, which will take you into your degree course with a kind of, because you have so much free studio time in your degree course where you're left alone and they just literally just say work. You need something to be there to structure your time and kind of build. Basically, you need to know how to make work, and coming out of a very structured A-level course does not help you make work independently, because there's no mark scheme or bullet points to follow like there would be in A-levels. So in an interview for a foundation course, what they're looking for is basically how can you present your thought process, and how open are you to experimenting and really kind of developing as an artist. And I think one of the most important things you need to look at in a foundation portfolio, a little bit less so in a degree portfolio, is variation, experimentation, doing things that are way out of your comfort zone, because when you get to that interview stage, it really creates conversation. Now, I kind of pulled up my hard drive here, and there are some images I managed to kind of get, which I recall kind of putting into my portfolio for a foundation course. And I have a mix of literally traditional works, stuff from my A-levels. Bear in mind, it was only like 1 or 2 final pieces I had from my A-levels. Barely any of my portfolio was my A-level work, with the exception of, as I said, a couple refined final pieces. That's because it was still kind of as well interested. Those final pieces were still related to my main interest as an artist, which was kind of landscapes and nature and themes surrounding. You get what I'm saying? So I don't have access, unfortunately, to all of this work right now because I'm in China and all of my work is in London. So a more in-detail video of my specific portfolio will have to wait until I'm back. But as you can see, I'm going to start putting images here of some of the more conceptual stuff or conceptual ideas I was working with. Like one of my pages I particularly remember was literally... So basically, let me explain. I ended up taking a year out and working and deciding on what I needed to do before actually applying to art. So when I was applying for foundation portfolio, I went to a paid course at University of the Arts London, specifically preparing a portfolio to the degree at which a University of the Arts London degree course or foundation course would expect. So I was trying to get into University of the Arts London foundation course, and I did their own program to prepare for that. So I could not have been basically set up better, because I'm having staff from University of the Arts London telling me what to put in my portfolio to apply to the foundation course. Funnily enough, I got rejected by University of the Arts London, even though I did their own course to get in. So sometimes, you just don't have that guarantee, regardless of how good or how well informed the advice that you're getting. Sometimes maybe it just doesn't click with whoever's going through your portfolio. But this portfolio did get me into the Royal Drawing School, and I'm so happy that I got rejected actually by University of the Arts London, because if I didn't get rejected by them, I probably would not have gone to the Royal Drawing School. And by going to the Royal Drawing School and speaking to other kind of students and classmates and whatever about foundation courses, I cannot see there being a better foundation course than the Royal Drawing School. But anyways, I'm going on a tangent. So when I had my interview, for example, for the Royal Drawing School, because University of the Arts London, they don't do interviews for their foundation courses. When I had like my bread work, I remember there was other mixed media abstract pieces that I did that were really uncomfortable for me to do. You see, I was kind of coming out of A-level, I was more of a traditional landscape painter. As I speak, I will literally kind of show what I'm talking about. I was a traditional landscape painter, just refined landscapes, interested in landscapes, did some still life as well, just pretty standard A-level student, to be honest. But then going into these different kinds of conceptual work and working with all this strange material, wasting bread, and having these images in my portfolio, what it did at the interview was it helped create conversation. Because when you do things that are uncomfortable, questions are raised. The way you do something is completely kind of, you start to, I guess, think about things in a different sense. So for example, when I remember on one instance in the interview, someone pulled up one of these kind of conceptual pieces. I think it was a mixed media abstract piece that I did. And they were just like, tell me about this piece. And I was honest. I said like, look, I see myself, something along that, I can't remember exactly, but I was saying like, I'm into my painting, I'm into traditional work, and this is something that kind of has appealed to me, and doing the mixed media abstract piece was way out of my comfort zone. But by doing so, helped me see this in a different way, helped me see that in a different way, and that conversation about kind of putting yourself out of that comfort zone and teaching yourself new things regardless of the outcome, whether you like the aesthetic or absolutely hate it, is so important when you're at these kind of early stages, that you show you have that open mind when it comes to experimentation, because it's that open mind and that kind of curiosity for going things that are outside of the normal, regardless of what the result is. That's what they want in a student, especially at the early stages. And this can count for both foundation and degree level. So on the interview itself, I would just describe it as kind of a conversation. And this is both at the foundation level interview I did at the Royal Drawing School, and also my UAL interview. The two other universities I applied to just rejected me straight up, because I was a bit of a fool when it came to applying for my university courses. I only applied for 3, even though I could have gone with 5. So I had UAL, University of the Arts London, which is where I went for my painting course at Wimbledon. Then I applied to the Slade and Goldsmiths, and the Slade and Goldsmiths rejected me because, to be honest, my portfolio was quite bland, I would argue, and I think I'm quite lucky that University of the Arts London, Wimbledon actually accepted me, because I think I could give much better examples of work, concepts and things that you could do with your portfolio that would make your portfolio so much better than what mine was applying to University of the Arts London and other universities. But regarding the interview, it was, as I said, it's kind of like a conversation. You kind of come in, sometimes they will ask you kind of, just introduce you and your work, or like, what are you interested in? And then what they'll do is they'll just start, they tend to have a look at your portfolio beforehand, so that when you come in, they're kind of preparing what to maybe talk about in advance. But they will kind of flick through your portfolio with you, and I will put pictures of things that I recall kind of being in my portfolio at the time when I was applying to university. It was kind of like generic abstract stuff. Maybe the slightly more interesting things were the semi-abstract kind of stuff. But yeah, my work's come a long way since. But yeah, it's interesting kind of looking back. But I think one of the problems is with my work is it was just quite bland, to be honest. There was nothing that kind of interesting, whether it be about the process, the mark making, the subject, and my kind of planning was still very premature, I guess. Like, I didn't really plan things very well, so then the result of all of my work was very mediocre because my planning and my process and my structure, I just didn't have it yet. And that's probably another video I would do. But as you can see, kind of I did kind of just generic landscape, clouds, seascape stuff. I also had life drawing. Some of this went in, some of this went out, but all of these pictures here were things that we kind of were considering and looking to put into my portfolio at that foundation level. So I'm talking about applying to a degree now. But regarding the interviews, they kind of just flick through these things and they kind of ask you, okay, what are your interests? Tell me about this piece. And it's just, you need to be prepared to talk about your work. So, I mean, I even remember saying, because I was interested in landscapes, when I was at my interview in University of the Arts London, Wimbledon, I remember I got there early and I was kind of exploring the area a little bit, or I came through a park to get to the university. There was a park very near the university. So I just mentioned to the guy who was interviewing me, I was like, oh yeah, I can see that there's some kind of local parks or local nature around, so it would be interesting for me to go and study, because I paid attention to the type of tree. So I was just showing that, look, I'm paying attention to my surroundings, and there was a cool tree that I saw on the way to the interview. And I was like, yeah, maybe I'll go and study those trees when I come here, and blah, 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 blah. I never went to that park and I never studied those trees. But I did communicate that, you know, I observe my surroundings and I pay attention to things. I'll be honest, I don't really remember anything too significant or feeling intimidated. I think it's easier to remember bad or awkward situations than it is to remember just an interview that went quite smoothly. But one thing I will highlight is just be prepared to speak about what you have in your portfolio, and also try and communicate your thought processes and your openness to experiment and kind of change and learn. Because remember, university is a learning environment, and they don't want you to come in as this refined artist who has this fixed concept and has, you know, 20 pages in their portfolio of the exact same paintings. It's not something that they would be like, well, what are you coming here to learn then? And it's okay to start, you know, obviously defining some kind of a style, or if you are developing some kind of a brand for your work, but early on they're not expecting this, and it's better to have a range of work that you can talk about and really show that, you know, you're going to be this dedicated, open-minded student who's going to learn and change and evolve throughout their degree. Because it's the master's degree courses that are expecting that more refined concept, that more refined practice when it comes to that interview and your work in the portfolio. And I think one of the reasons I got rejected by the RCA MA painting course was because my work is not refined enough. My concept is not refined enough. I'm not going deep enough when it comes to my concept and my work, and that needs just some more work, which I'm kind of really getting a hold of now, but it comes along slowly, and they're not expecting that at foundation or degree level. So, I don't know. As I said, I can't really remember specifically any kind of crazy questions they asked. As I said, it was kind of just like a conversation. And I feel like I've rambled a bit in this video, but I just wanted to put this out there because I know I don't have access to a lot of, some of my work that I had in my portfolios and stuff, but expect them to speak about your work in your portfolio. That's kind of going to be the main topic of the interview. That's going to be the bulk of kind of what you're speaking about, but you just need to think about how you're going to communicate good aspects of your own thinking process and how you're going to basically benefit in the university environment. So you can do that by showing obviously an interest in your subject, an interest in your research, an interest in the process of your work, showing that you've done different kinds of work, to show that you're open-minded, and you're not kind of fixed on a single way of working or a single subject. And they just want to see, obviously, a student who's gonna show up. One positive thing that I think really gets across to a lot of universities, or at least the painting or the program leaders that are interviewing you, is try to communicate them that you want to show up in the studios and that the studio environment is really important to you. Because I think one thing that's lacking in a lot of modern art courses is studios are becoming more empty because students just aren't willing to come in. And I was one of those students, like second half of first year, because the studios were so dead. I was like, forget this, I'm not coming in. But if the studios are alive and buzzing with people working, it's a whole different kind of atmosphere. So if you are someone who is going to be coming in, tell them that. Be like, look, I'm really interested in this studio environment. I haven't had access to an environment like this before, and I'm so excited to, start working in that studio environment and kind of communicating with my peers, and whether that be second years, third years, first years, and really engage with the resources that you have in the university. And ideally, you really want to know the resources, or at least question. You can ask them questions too. You can ask them about the resources they offer, the workshops that they offer, the environments that they have, the things that they can teach you. It shows an interest, and obviously, ideally, if you do as much research as you can about the university beforehand, then you can go in with amazing questions to ask. Or sometimes you will even get an email from the university saying who's going to interview you. So they will say, the program leader, blah, 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 will be leading your interview and will be assisted by blah, 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 who will be taking notes. Go and look up those people online, stalk their work, get an idea of their subject, their concept. Fantastic if, it appeals to you, but get to know it. Then when you're talking to them, be like, oh yeah, I had a look at your work online and I'm really interested in how you make this texture or how you did this. Do we have access to you for tutorials during blah, blah, blah? So you've just shown that you've gone out of your way to go and research basically one of the staff that are interviewing you. Then you've taken interest in their work. Then you went and asked them at the interview, if I get a place here, will I have access to you and your ideas and can you teach me how to do this? You're really showing, look, I want to learn and I've gone out of my way to do extra research online. Like, this isn't even something I did, but I think this is some bloody good advice. So there's all these little things that you can kind of do to really set a good impression in that interview. And I think it's more about the impression than really is about the work, because the work changes so much. And as I said, I think my work was really not strong for my portfolio, but I think the impression that I gave at the interview, the one interview that I had, was a good impression because of the way I'm able to kind of communicate myself and I guess show that I was really interested in doing a painting MA, and painting is what I wanted to do. So I hope that this hasn't been too much of a ramble. I've kind of touched on different things, whether it be the foundation and portfolio and work, and it's a bit of a mix. So excuse my kind of tangents, but I think they're relevant tangents in relation to the interview process. So thank you for watching. Thank you for your support. I hope this video has been somewhat helpful to those watching. Just leave more questions in the comments below. This video is a result of questions and things that people say in the comments and message me on Instagram. So keep them coming, and thank you. Thank you for watching, and here is my awkward bye.